Dr. Goodin here with joint movements of the shoulder girdle. It elevates, it depresses, it protracts, and it retracts, but that's not all there is to it. Let's get right into the material. All right, here we are in the slides, and remember that this video will focus on joint movements of the scapulothoracic joint and the shoulder girdle. Okay, so when we're talking about movements specifically of the scapula, we need to pay attention to the bony landmarks of the inferior angle, down here, the glenoid fossa, as I've mentioned before, and how that repositions, and the acromion process, right here at the superior aspect. And if we can track these bony landmarks, and we can tell where the scapula is positioned. And remember that all movements have that common pivot joint at the SC joint. Now, shoulder girdle movements is the same thing as saying scapula movements. So wherever the scapula goes, the clavicle will follow, and vice versa. Here on this picture, we see a really good example of how to palpate for this surface anatomy. You can see here on this individual the inferior angle of the scapula. If you were to trace with your fingers around to the medial border and up the lateral border, the scapular spine is running this way, with the acromioclavicular joint being right here on the posterior aspect, and then here's that upper trapezius, like I've mentioned before, and deltoid coming off to the side. So that's how to just sort of orient yourself on somebody's scapula. On the other side, you can see the clavicle coming off the manubrium all the way to the AC joint. So here's the SC joint and the AC joint. Now the movements, and you can see with our person on the slides doing the movements, and I'll show you as well, abduction and adduction are also called protraction and retraction. So remember that to abduct something means to move it away from the midline. I unfortunately often think of the example of if somebody is abducted, you're taking them away. Hopefully you're not doing the abducting. If somebody is abducted, they are being taken away from where they should be. And when you abduct a body part, it's moving away from the midline. Adduction is to add it back to the body. And so more commonly though, I think protraction and retraction are used for the scapula, because when you go through scapular adduction and abduction, it's not purely abduction and adduction. There's also that curving around the rib cage that happens. So I like to call it protraction here when the shoulder girdle moves anteriorly, and retraction when it moves posteriorly and your scapula come together. We have upward and downward rotation. I can't demo it very well in this shirt, but it's maybe a little small for me and seen the wash too many times. But as you go through abduction of the humerus or of the shoulder joint, then your scapula is going to upward rotate, as we see in this bottom picture right down here. You can even notice on this individual, you can see where her scapular spine, the inferior angle of her scapula starts out, and then it moves upwards. It kind of wings upwards, not wings really, but curves upwards like that. And that's repositioning her glenoid fossa from where it starts, which is about there, and then when it ends, it's about here. So that's upward and downward rotation. And those movements tend to accompany shoulder abduction and adduction. Then we have elevation and depression, and this is just a movement superiorly, so superior translation and an inferior translation of the scapula. So up and then down. So shoulders to your ears and then shoulders down to the floor. And again, we can see on this individual, you can see the inferior angle moving from there up to there and back with elevation and depression. Okay, so this picture, I like this picture because it just clearly marks out the directions that the scapula will move. So first, while we're looking at the scapula, let's identify that this is a right scapula, because here is the glenoid fossa. All right, and then so it would have its twin scapula would be, off screen over there somewhere. So elevation is up, depression is down, protraction or abduction moves away from the midline. Retraction or adduction moves towards the midline, and remember it's also going curving sort of around the rib cage. Upward rotation is when that inferior angle rotates upwards. And downward rotation is when it rotates right back down to the starting point. So it's important to know, as I mentioned in the previous video, that shoulder joint and shoulder girdle movements happen together. It's a synergistic movement that occurs. So shoulder girdle movement, though, is not dependent upon shoulder joint movement. Shoulder joint movement, though, is dependent on the shoulder girdle. And what do I mean by that? I could just hang my shoulder joints, just allow them to be passive, right? They're not moving, my humerus isn't moving, and I can move my shoulder girdle around. But if I want to move my shoulder joint, I have to stabilize my shoulder girdle in order to do so, and especially in order to do it effectively. So the shoulder girdles, as I just mentioned, they stabilize the scapula, so the shoulder joint muscles have a stable base from which to exert force. This is demonstrated well if we compare and contrast the bench press to the push-up. So in the bench press, you actually need to keep your shoulder blades, your scapula, retracted and locked down onto the bench as you're benching to keep your shoulders in a really good position. If you lose stability in your upper back and you allow the shoulders to protract, the shoulder girdle to protract and your shoulder to come forward anteriorly, as that bar is coming down, that puts your shoulder joint into kind of a dangerous position. It's unstable there, it can become impinged, and too much lifting in that area can lead to either chronic or maybe even an acute injury. For the push-up, on the other hand, you do want to maintain scapular retraction on the downward motion and on most of the upward motion, but as soon as you reach the top, you can actually allow your shoulder girdle to protract. And doing so helps to strengthen things like serratus anterior and other muscles that act on the shoulder girdle. And that's why, we might want to include both of those movements in training, because while bench press, you can use heavier loads, you can get stronger, you can increase muscle mass better. Push-ups are great just for that scapular stability. So two different movements, but the scapula have to function slightly differently in each of them. And in the bench press, they need to stay very, very stable through the whole range of motion and through every rep, whereas on push-ups, at the top, you can actually use serratus anterior to push yourself into protraction. So sometimes the muscles of the shoulder girdle contract to maintain the scapula in a static position during shoulder joint actions, and sometimes they need to move the shoulder girdle to enhance movement of the upper extremity in those extreme ranges of motion. Now for some movements, the scapula must actually rotate or tilt on its axis, and we haven't talked about this movement yet. We have lateral and medial tilt, or outward tilt and then return from that, which would be inward tilt. So during protraction, as I've mentioned, the scapula sort of curve around the rib cage, and in doing so, if you just consider the scapula, it's actually rotating on a vertical axis or a superior-inferior axis. So when it's moving around that axis, that's called lateral tilt. And then medial tilt is returning from that into retraction. So during extreme retraction, it tilts the opposite way, medially. Now we also have anterior tilt and posterior tilt. So this is rotation about the frontal axis, which occurs during hyperextension for anterior tilt. So if we're hyperextending our shoulder, coming back like this, then that scapula is going to tilt anteriorly. So if it was a cup, it would be spilling the water anteriorly. That's how you remember which direction the tilt is going. And then posterior tilt occurs during hyperflexion, so trying to flex past your range of motion, and your scapula will actually tilt posteriorly, so that water would spill backwards if it were a cup. So, as I mentioned before, there is synergy between muscles of the glenohumeral joint and muscles of the shoulder girdle, or the scapulothoracic joint. The more extreme the ranges of motion that the shoulder joint goes through, the scapula muscles have to contract to move the shoulder girdle to reposition the glenoid fossa so that it's in that more appropriate position. And as I've mentioned, without accompanying scapular movement, the humerus can only be raised to about 90 degrees of total shoulder abduction and flexion. So anything over that, and now we're starting to get into that scapular movement. So in order to accomplish this, muscles from both of these joints, the shoulder joint and the shoulder girdle, or the scapulothoracic joint, have to work together in order to complete the desired action of the upper extremity. So muscles of both joints working in synergy. So for example, when you raise your hand out to the side laterally as high as possible, so going through full range of motion, shoulder abduction, serratus anterior, and trapezius, the middle and lower fibers of the trapezius, not the upper fibers, upwardly rotate the scapula, so this way, if this is the inferior angle, as supraspinatus, one of the rotator cuff muscles, and the deltoid initiate glenohumeral abduction. Now, there are 5 primary muscles involved in shoulder girdle movements, and we are going to cover that in the next video, so be sure to check that out. In this video, the main takeaway that I want you to get from it is that the shoulder girdle and the shoulder joint move synergistically, and that the shoulder girdle has a number of sort of unique movements, such as upward rotation, downward rotation, anterior and posterior tilt, lateral and medial tilt, that are unique to it. And it has those motions so that it can reposition that glenoid fossa. I also want you to remember that without movement of the shoulder girdle, the shoulder joint has a limited range of motion. And so that when we're working with athletes or with somebody in the clinic and it seems like they have a limited range of motion for some reason at the shoulder, we want to look further up that kinetic chain to the shoulder girdle to see, well, is there some tightness that's not allowing that scapula to move? Is there a weakness? Is there some sort of postural issue that we need to diagnose first in order to allow and free up movement or strengthen movement in the shoulder girdle to then allow the shoulder joint to move optimally. Okay, thanks for checking out the joint movements of the shoulder girdle with me. Head on over to this video to look at each individual muscle and how it acts on the shoulder girdle. If you had any comments about this video or questions, leave them down below and I'd love to answer you. And don't forget to like or subscribe to the channel. Thanks.